Right, you should have it now, Mark. Right, Mark, I don't know. Well, I can't hear you. I don't know if everybody else can. We didn't have this issue last time. I don't know what's going on.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Hey,
There
got you.
Just setting. When I logged back out, it threw me out.
Right. Okay. Well, we both got our labels on as Georgina, but I'm Petra Williams, and this is Mark Tinney, and we're going to go through a presentation on making the best use, really, of technology to support assessment. And Mark's going to talk us through some useful tools that are all compatible with the tools that we've got within the college, as in Moodle, Teams, etc. So we can really use those as part of what we're doing for our students. So welcome everybody, and I'll straight away pass over to Mark to take you through some of the tools we've got.
Great, thank you very much. So I've got a list of things to try to go through today, and hopefully we'll get to them all. But I'm going to start with the Microsoft tools that you already have as part of Office 365. So if you just log into Office 365, you will have a range of all of these tools. So we've got OneDrive, we've got Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote. There's Teams, Class Notebook, Sway, which is a really good presentation tool, and then Forms. Now, if you've done the survey that was posted in the chat at the beginning of this, and 5 of you have, thank you very much. Because that gives us some data to look at. So that was just done in Microsoft Forms. And all I've done is enter a couple of questions. And you can see, I'm just going to show you how I can add a new question as well. So I can choose whether I want a multiple choice question, a text question, a rating question. I can even put a date stamp on there. And I can do a Likert scale, or a ranking question, which is the first question I asked actually was a ranking question. So put these in order from the most important to the least important, or the biggest concerns that I have to the things that I think I have pretty well sorted. So there are a range of question types that I can ask. We'll start with just a basic multiple choice question. And that looks as you would expect it to. So here are my options. And I can move those options around, I can throw them out, I can make the question required or not required easily enough. And if I just show you, we'll come back and I'll just open a new forms page, because I can also turn any form into a quiz. So you can see that I can do a new form or a new quiz. I can even have quizzes that have been shared with me. And you can see the quizzes that I already have put out there, or the assessment survey that I've already got put out there. So when I'm in, I can just click into responses, and I can see what we said. So the majority of people have said engagement. 80% of the 5 respondents, so 4 out of 5 people have put engagement as their #1 concern when doing assessment online. Okay. The second place, 20% of people put it as their first choice, 40% put it as third and fourth choice, and then that's formative assessment. So how do I monitor what's going on throughout the lesson or over time throughout the unit? Learner access, 60% of you have put that as your second choice. So this gives me some really nice feedback into how you're feeling and how to make sure that you can get learners engaged in the session, that you can get them access to the tools you're using, timely feedback. Keeping up with feedback I thought would be high on the list. It's actually pretty low. And supporting learners to complete the assessment is a little bit lower than I'd anticipated. So those are things that I'm not going to focus on. So already I've given a bit of an initial assessment here and know where you're feeling you are. The majority of respondents have said they use Kahoot and Quizizz. We're going to talk about Quizizz a little bit today, but only very briefly. One person uses TED-Ed. Well done. I love TED-Ed. One person uses Forms, and 2 have said they use an other. And nobody's answered question 3 yet because it's just a mock question. We can go throw it away. Let's go throw it away. So feel free to go back and respond to that survey if you haven't already. The link is right in the chat, and we can post it back into the chat at the end, just so that I can be sure that in upcoming webinars, if I've not covered something that you wanted to talk about, that we get to it. But Forms is pretty basic and easy. The easy thing to do is, if you can see in this tab that I'm opened in my web email. If I've got my web email open and then I just literally Google Office 365, when I click on that login, it's going to know I'm already logged into an Office 365 account in my other tab. So boom, I'm in. So now I can choose which of the tools I want to use. Now the 2 I'm focusing on today are Forms, which we've just taken a quick look at. It's nice and easy to do. All of your students have a Microsoft account, so if they're able to log into Teams, they can access Forms, which means they can complete your forms because you can make those public and open, or they can even create their own forms and quizzes and surveys if they're doing bits of research. Some of you may have students who are doing kind of miniature bits of action research or something like that. So really useful tool even for them. The other thing I wanted to look at is OneDrive. And Forms is great if I want to do a quiz or a survey of my group in an interactive way, where we can gather the results and talk about them in real time, very much in the way that I just did. So all of you have said that you understand this topic, so we're not going to talk about it. So it's a great thing to do as a starter for a lesson or a unit, so that you know where they are before you've begun and can build on that. Using OneDrive takes you a little bit further. If they have an assignment that they're working on and you want to be able to check in on the progress on that assignment in real time, OneDrive is the way to do it. Again, because they've got the 365 account already, they've got OneDrive, so they can do the exact same thing that I just did. Just log into their email and it will automatically log them into Office 365. So again, if they can access Teams, they can access this. And all they would do is create new. They can do a Word document or a PowerPoint. So if maybe they have to do a presentation, they can do that. And the nice thing is, once they've opened up that Word document, they can share it with you, which means you can see it progress in real time. When I taught A-level history, a lot of my students, all my students had to do coursework, which was a year-long project for them. And I used to use Google Drive for very much the same thing. So they would create the document right at the beginning of the year and share it with me. And then as the year progressed, I could see their progress. I wasn't allowed to actually mark it or provide feedback to them on the writing, but I could certainly crack the whip when it needed to be. So I might log into their assignment and say, you've not even written your introduction yet, or you're only 2 paragraphs in and it's due in a week. Get your butt moving. So those are the kinds of things that we can do. The other thing is that they can then share it with each other. So there's this share right up on the top right, and I can just send an email to anybody in the organization with a little message, say, hey, come take a look at this, and I can allow them to edit. So as BTech tutors, you're not allowed to provide specific feedback on their work, but being able to track their work in real time and the progress they've made is still incredibly useful. And they also have the option to share it with one another. This may vary a little bit depending on the groups you have, and you might advise them to be very choosy about who they share it with so that they're getting some honest feedback, not getting their work stolen from them. So it is, something to use with caution, but it means that you can have your students create the assignment, share it with you, and you can check on its progress in real time, which I think is incredibly useful. Building from that.
Can I just wanted to say, if anyone has any questions as we're going through, we will try and answer at the end of each of these sections. I've posted it a couple of times now is in answers to people's questions, so hopefully you can find that link. A lot of people were asking about where they can access the survey. I know we've moved on from that now.
Now.
But if there are any other questions, please do put them in the question section, and I will keep asking as we go through. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely stop me if I'm going too quickly or ask a question. We will try to pause and answer them. So thinking about how you can use forms and OneDrive to ensure that you're getting that level of interaction, because you're using tools that are already tied into the student email addresses and your staff email address, we're GDPR safe, right? It's all secure. And so getting any responses from learners through this kind of system is enterprise level security, so you're fine. So it's nice to know that you're using something safe. With a form, or even if you created a OneDrive document of your own, it may be that you have a template that students might use for beginning an assignment, or that you've got a template that you just want students to go in and enter their bit of information. As a member of staff, I can also share that document with students through OneDrive. And I can even do that through a link, which you can see here, copy link, and I can put that up on Moodle. So I can get that document straight on Moodle with a live link that students can go straight into and edit, or if I want them to just view it, I can change this and see people with existing access, just people within Bedford College, and I can turn off this allow editing so they can only view it. I can even block them from downloading it if I want to. So we've got a lot of controls about what we can do with these items within Office 365. And the same is true for forms. So if I've got a form up, we've got 17 responses now. We're doing well, we're cooking. So once I've got this form up, I can copy this link and put it right up on Moodle as well, so I can get feedback from my students that way. I can also share it within Teams, so I can just post that link in Teams and it will be live. So something I can do again in the middle of a session. So let's see just quickly on our updated responses where we are. So engagement is still the number one, 82.4%. Feel engagement is their number one. So we're going to focus on some tools that will make engagement easy, and the same for learner access. So forms and OneDrive are both really easy for learner access, but we'll also look at a few other options for you that you will find really easy for learners to access. So beyond doing just a document, so if I've got a document in OneDrive, I can do a bit more of a training down the road on how to use Classroom Notebook, because I can even get students to do a whole portfolio of evidence in that. But right now, my suggestion would be, let's stick with what's really easy to do and look at Padlet. So if you're having students create a portfolio of evidence, Padlet really is the way to go there. And so what I'm going to do is I've got a Padlet up here, and I'm just going to click on the share button for you. And I think I should be able now to post that in the chat. So here's a link to this Padlet. For those of you that know how to use them, I'll also just post the QR code so you can just scan that and hop onto a Padlet. So go ahead and either scan the QR code and hop on to this Padlet. And what I would suggest you use a Padlet for is in getting students to create a portfolio of evidence, particularly if you're looking at students who are doing a vocational subject where perhaps they need to put together a portfolio of evidence of completed work. I know one of my friends who teaches motor vehicle in the States is right now getting his students to do work on their own vehicles and take photos of that work in progress and post it on a Padlet to create a portfolio of evidence of work. So what I'd like you to do is just post a hello, try posting an image, take a little selfie of you with your cup of tea right now and post it up onto this Padlet, just to show A, that you can post, and B, that you've got quite a range of options of what you can post. So if I just click the little plus button, I can post anything I want here. And what is really useful for your students is if I scroll down to here, I can record my screen or I can film. So I can do a little video response to a question. So I'm going to type a quick question here. What is your favorite assessment tool and why? So if you're up on the Padlet and feeling brave enough, go ahead and try. Oh, it wants the American spelling. I've become so British, I automatically spell in a British way. Look at all these posts already. So if you're, oh look, someone's got their little dog up, the cute little Yorkie. Oh, the cup of tea, nice, Nicola. That's brilliant. If you're feeling brave enough, try to post a quick little video of yourself, just responding to that question. What's your favorite assessment tool and why? So I can even get a more engaging and interactive response from my students this way, just by asking them to post a quick video response. So if you're feeling brave enough, go ahead and post a video response. Oh, look at the little kitty asleep. Right in the sunspot. That's brilliant. So Padlet is a great way to do that real-time assessment with learners, but I could also set it up as an assignment between sessions. So between now and next week, I'd like you to go and take a series of photographs of around town where you see historic elements of architecture, or where you see, I don't know, various wheel or tire designs on a vehicle. We have to be a little creative on how we do it, but there are loads of different ways that I could put an assignment out there and ask students to post video responses, to take photos, and things like that, and that becomes an assessment. So what I have students do is make sure that when they, I make sure that when students post or when students create their own Padlet, that they turn on comments so that I can add comments to them. So I can come in and say, that looks like a tasty cup of tea, Nicola. Or I can say hello back to art and design. And all of those comments will then be available to the students. So when my students do a portfolio, like I said, I get it organized. Nice, Mark. Good selfie. So once I get a Padlet organized, I will then go in and add feedback comments on the Padlet in real time, which my students find really useful. I can give them some really effective feedback that way that I can do either during the lesson or outside of the lesson. A really good way to do it. Keep getting this, no more attendees. We're over our 101.
We've got to the maximum number of attendees allowed. So anyone who was late getting here won't be able to, but we are recording, so we will obviously send that out. We have had a question about the forms. Can it mark work, or is it just data gathering? From Mel.
I believe if you set it up as a quiz, it will self-mark the multiple choice questions. And I don't know if it will do the open-ended, but it will certainly do the multiple choice questions as self-marking. We can actually certainly go back and try that. So just to finish up with Padlet, I think people are quite familiar with it. It's just thinking about, how can I use Padlet as an assessment tool? If you need to get students to get a portfolio of evidence together, I think there's no better way. For art and design tutors, I know a lot of them use this a lot, quite regularly. It might even be a really useful way to get students to continue to update their work and annotate their work in really effective ways when maybe we can't look at their sketchbooks in the same detail as we could, or maybe we even get them to take really good images of their sketchbooks and post them on a Padlet and use it that way. I think even for performing arts, this could work really well in students posting short videos of them doing some work, and then analyzing that work and reflecting on it, which is one of the big elements. There's a great question about forms. If we don't mind, I'm just going to hop back and answer that question. When we come into forms initially, if I set this up as a quiz, and when I ask a multiple choice question, I can decide whether it has multiple answers or a single answer. And then I can tell it which one is the correct answer. You see that little check mark. So now when students do it, it will self-mark for them. And I can assign how many points each question is. So maybe one question, if it's a multiple answer question, maybe I give that more points than a single answer question. Or if the question has is more important in some way. Now it won't, you would have to mark it if you put in open text and things like that, then you would have to mark that question for them. But they could do ranking order. So again, using a history example, they could put things in order of events. So what happened first? Kennedy was assassinated, or the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 was passed. So I can do it that way and still have that self-mark in my understanding. But open text questions, you will have to come back in and mark.
So good question from Debbie. Does Bedford College Group have an account for Padlet, as it will only allow you to have 3 free Padlets? I know we covered this a bit last time, but if you want to just go back over that, Mark, that's great.
We did. Yeah, that's a great question. You do get 3 free Padlets initially, and those are 3 Padlets running simultaneously. So once you're done with one, if you delete it, you then can have another one. So it's any 3 at one time. So you can be smart about it and cycle through them. But the more important thing to know is how you get more for free. Free stuff is the best. So if you click on your little icon over here on the side and go into your profile, it's not in your profile, I tell a lie. It's in your settings. So go into your settings. Then you see this little referrals tab on the left side. if I click referrals, I get this link. So if I'm getting my students to use Padlet, what I do is I send them that link. And for every 3 of my students that sign up for their own Padlet account, I get another free Padlet, which is why I have 27. Because I've been doing it for a while. And I do have multiple accounts, to be fair. Now, there was an issue that came up last time that some people were struggling to sign into a Padlet account using their laptops. It was coming up with a permissions issue. What you can do to get around that is if you just sign into Padlet using your mobile device with your work email address, you will then be able to log into it on your laptop. For some reason, it's just blocking the sign in using your work email, but just use a mobile device to create the account, then you can log in with no problem. We did find a way around that. Thank you to Sue Greystone if she's out there. Are there any other questions or concerns about Padlet and how you might use it? And again, if you get your students to create their own, make sure you send them that link to do it, and then you'll get some free ones out of the deal. I do tell mine that that's what I'm doing, so I don't hide anything, that if they don't want to use my link, they can just go to Padlet and sign up for their own. But they've always used my link, and for every 3, I get a new Padlet, so that's a bonus.
So we got a few bits of feedback on that. Trish says, wish I'd known this, as I really didn't want to get rid of the ones I'd already created. So she's gutted that she didn't already know that. And then also, when it says save to Clipnote, what is Clipnote and where can it be found?
Clipnote on Padlet?
Or is that on? Is that on? Might have been in relation to another earlier question from her. We'll come back to that. Just generally, yeah. Sorry, clipboard, save to Clipboard, just generally, right?
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. What that means is that it's copied it so that you can paste it somewhere else. So if I copy this link with Control-C, I can then paste it with Control-V. So copy to Clipboard is put it in your computer's immediate memory. So the next time I go into a space and I hit Control-V in a Word document or in a browser address bar, it's going to paste whatever that was. So if I click shared here and copy link to Clipboard, what that means is copy Padlet URL to your clipboard. So if I open a new tab and I can right click and paste, it's just put it there. So it's given that link to my quick paste clipboard. So it just copied it for me so I don't have to type it all out. That's all it needs.
Okay, another question which is going backwards a bit to the, so how do I, so once they've submitted their answers on Microsoft Forms, how do you then feed back to students?
I've never actually run a full quiz on Forms. We can do this in a number of different ways. Well, actually, you should be able to allow this system. Let me see if I can do it here. There's a feedback section right here up on the right where I can have, it's a little bit different in Google Docs than it is here. If I put in multiple choice questions that are self-marking, they'll get that feedback straight away. On Google Forms, I can also have that feedback emailed straight back to them. And with a little bit more investigation, I'll see if I can do that here. I can review answers and I can post scores. There we are. So what I'm going to do is let's create a real question here. right, I'll post the link to it, and then we'll see how we feedback. We're going to say that there's no correct, well, yeah, let's say there's correct answer here just for giggles. We're going to copy that and we'll post it right up in the chat. So I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and do this quiz, just so I can demonstrate how you can feedback to a group. So in the chat, just go ahead and answer that question. And what you should get is an immediate response that gives you an overall score if you choose the correct answer.
Have we got any responses? No, I think it's in the chat. Let me just see if I can copy it across, Mark. So it needs to go into the questions. I think that was our problem earlier.
All
Oh,
right.
no, we got responses. I think we're all right. Sorry.
Oh yeah, there we go. Just took a second to come across.
Yeah. So nothing here. So while we're waiting for that, one of them's with Padlet. Would you suggest that you get each student to have their own board and then invite the tutor to see their work?
That's the way I do it. So get each student to create their own Padlet of evidence or of their own work, and then invite the tutor along. So I ask students to make sure they turn on comments on their own Padlet and allow editing when they share it with me. And within Padlet, they can share it with a specific user, or they can just email you the link. Either way is easy enough. Okay. So here we can see that in our form, in our Microsoft quiz here, we have had 9 people get the correct answer of quizzes, and 10 people have said Padlet. And then I've got this review answers and post scores. So I can post these scores, and that's just going to send them all out to you, and it's automatically graded them. You should get an email on how you did. You're all logged into your Microsoft accounts because we shared it just within the organization. So once you've posted scores, everybody gets an email saying how they've done. So it's a nice, easy way to do it. So I can even review those answers. If I come back, if I click review answers, I can go back through and look at each student and see what they answered. Okay, I can provide feedback, I can award points or not, I can even add comments against. We'll pick on Charlene a little bit because I know she won't mind, and say, yep, this was a really good response, Charlene, and then I can post that back out to her. So I can provide pretty detailed feedback on a quiz that way. So even the questions that, oh, we've had a few more responses even since. So then I can post those out again, and everybody else will have had them. So it's a really easy tool to use, and give students a range of different questions. So if I've asked an open-ended question with a text answer, I can provide feedback, mark them, add a comment, and when I hit post, they'll get that feedback via email. That's a great question. Thank you for calling me on that. I should have covered that automatically. Okay, are there any more questions on forms or Padlet?
There's just one on where do they get the results from Jeremy, sorry.
The results, where do the students get results?
Yeah.
They should get it straight. I believe it comes straight to your email.
Okay. That's it for questions at the moment.
Okay, good. What I'm going to do is move on to something that I've not covered, certainly in a webinar in a while, but I've done it in a number of trainings. It's one of my favorite websites on the internet. And as many of you have said, that engagement is one of your major concerns. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about Sporcle. Sporcle is a completely free website which hosts millions of quizzes on any topic you can imagine. And we're going to play a little bit of a game now, right here in the chat. Again, I'm going to post another link for you. Try to make this an interactive session. We're going to do a little quiz on British films. You will have 4 minutes to fill in the blank words in each one of these famous British films, and each of these are on BFI's best 100 films list. Okay, so if I click play quiz, all I need to do is type in the right word. So the first one is Lawrence of Arabia. So once I spell it correctly, boom, it knows it and puts it in. I don't know the second one, but I do know the next one, the third one. So just 4 minutes, have a go and see how you do. Now, what I'd like you to do is, if you've got your Padlet still open, I'll ask you to do exactly what I ask students to do when I get them to play Sporcle. Take a screenshot of your final result and post it back on the Padlet we had open before. Okay, let's see how well you know your British films. 4 minutes, go. There are a couple of these I don't know.
I'm hoping everyone's got the link. Maxine is saying she's not got the link, but I'm hoping everybody else is managing it.
Okay, we'll post it again in the chat for you, Maxine.
Thank you.
And I'll just post it up in questions as well. Maxine, what you could also do is just go to Sporcle. Oh, perfect.
And Mel just responded as well about the email. She did get an email response in case you wanted to know that it is working, so that's great.
Oh, perfect, great.
Keep the questions coming.
And it's a nice way to see if anybody knows all of their British films.
Some people are finding that it's freezing, Mark, on them at the moment.
Oh, is it pausing?
Yeah.
It may depend a little bit on your internet connection.
Probably got quite a lot of people on it as well all of a sudden.
That may be true, yeah. Finding the webinar screen or the Sporcle is freezing?
Yeah, a lot of people are finding it's frozen. Getting that feedback of it being frozen.
All right, okay. We have thrown just 100 people onto the same quiz at the same time, which could be part of that. I've never really had a problem with it freezing in the past, so it may just be a lag in your internet connection. If it does, just reload the whole page and see if you can start over. Has anyone finished it yet? No posts on the Padlet yet. Let me reload just in case. Well, if we have time, can we go through Sway? That's a good question.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether we will, but certainly can look at it at another time, can't we?
Yeah, I think it might be worth doing a session on presenting remotely so that we could go through maybe Sway and Nearpod and Mentimeter all together. So if people are interested in that, I'd be happy to do another session looking at the presentation side of things. We did kind of think assessment was more of an urgent concern, but I think it would be useful to go through Sway as well. It's a really good idea.
So some people couldn't, so finding they couldn't post. Emily said that would be great, thank you. Can you remind me how to upload my results, Susanne?
If you just use, there are a couple of ways you can do it. One of the easy ways is to just use Snippy, the Snippy tool on your laptop. So if I'm assuming you're on a college laptop, you'll have a little snipping tool here. And with that, once that opens, I can just take a picture of my screen. And then I can just copy and paste that onto Padlet or save it as an image and do it that way. But Padlet should, if you're using Padlet on your mobile device, you can also just take a picture of your screen that way, which is what quite a few people do. And we'll come back to that Padlet and just see if anyone's got it. And I'll just show you as we're waiting for some results to get posted, just to see how well we know our British films. I will just show you. See if we've got some down here at the bottom. Oh, we've got some results here. 11 out of 22. That's not too bad. That's about what I did. So you haven't beat the Yankee. 16 out of 22. That's a respectable score, 73%. Who's this 8 out of 22, man? You got some work to do, some films to watch. This is our highest score so far, 19 out of 22. Some of the ones I didn't know, you definitely got. Oh, here's another 19 out of 22. We got a couple. John Crawford, my man, 20 out of 22.
Yeah, Trina says she's got all but one. Well done.
Oh, all but one. That would be our highest score so far. Looking at Sporcle, just as some of the responses are coming in, it's really impressive how much is already here. And so if you're thinking about ways to make assessment fun and engaging, this is a great way to do it that's not creating extra work for you. So there is literally the anatomy of a human eye. I can do a quiz for that. And again, because I'm using Teams, I can just post the link right in Teams and boom, here we go. So if I want students to look at the anatomy of a human eye, there's a quiz. There are some really great ones if you're looking at embedding maths and English. Some really great minute maths ones. For those of you teaching English, even English as a second language, there will be lots of quizzes on word forms and things like that, adjectives and verbs, those sorts of things. The minute maths I really, really like. So there's some just mixed operations, just simple, but how many math problems can I solve in 60 seconds? You know, can they get to 50? And if you do happen to get to a point that you can't find a quiz that fits your topic, if you create your own account, which is free, you can build up to 7 quizzes a month for free. So I have some of my own quizzes here, and it's really good to make the quizzes live because Sporcle is the biggest home of geeks in the world. So if you've made a mistake, they are going to let you know. And so it's really useful to get that information feedback. So even here, parts of a diesel engine. So I could still have students looking at the various components of a diesel engine and learning all of those and being able to label them on a diagram. It's a great thing for a starter, for a plenary. Like I said, I used to set them as homework assignments and say to students, you need to go away and do this over and over again until you can get 90% or better. Take a screenshot of that and email it to me. Really nice, easy way to do it. Any questions on Sporcle?
There's nothing come in at the moment, but do post your questions if you've got any.
Let's see, we're going to go to Mentimeter. What I'm going to ask you to do now is, this is Mentimeter, and Mentimeter is something I might also cover in the presentation session that we'll do in the future. But it's also a really good assessment tool in that there are a number of different assessments that I can add to any presentation. So I just wanted to demonstrate one of my favorite ones. This is the word cloud tool, which is great as a starter. So what are your goals in assessing learners, and what do you want to achieve? Try to come up with one-word answers. You can answer up to 3 times. So you're just going to go to menti.com and use the code 557394. That's menti.com, and the code is 557394. This will work on any mobile device or a laptop. And as you enter your responses, they will create a word cloud here on my screen.
Okay, so we've got some feedback. Love Sporcle, use the spelling quizzes. That's from Maxine.
Good.
And then, does Mentimeter work if learners are not physically present, from Maxine?
Yes. They can do
and
it.
John is saying that that was never 4 minutes. He was on for a full house there. He's disappointed that we were short. And then Mark Williams has asked, what are your thoughts on Microsoft Maths?
Microsoft Maths. I can't say that I've used that actually, but something I can certainly look into and give you some feedback on, Mark. I've never used it. But here's the Mentimeter word cloud coming up. And the larger words have had more responses. So more people have said improvement because it's big. Improvement, engagement, progress is a really big one. Setting goals. And I think students find this really engaging because, again, as they're entering their own responses, they're seeing the screen change and seeing them come up and grow. Progress is still our #1 answer. And I can see that so far we've had 25, 30 participants. That changed just as I was saying it. Yeah, having a bit of fun, I think, is a great response there as well. That sometimes we forget that assessment's not just about measuring their progress, but it's an opportunity for us to have a bit of fun. So doing something like a Sporcle, or even a Quizizz or Kahoot, really can add that element of fun for us all. Okay, once we get to about 40, what I'll do is I'll exit out of here and I'll just show you very quickly the range of assessments that you can put into a Mentimeter presentation. So there we are at about 40. just going to minimize this. And if I just come to open the home page, I just want to make sure that we leave the first page live. So I've just opened up a new one. So if I just start a new presentation, that I can add presentation elements like a slide, but I can add multiple choice questions, a word cloud, open-ended questions, ranking. I can even do image choices, scales. I can have a Q&A session and ask people what their opinions are. I can do competitions. The competition's a really good one where, again, everybody's playing the same quiz at the same time, but it's, who's answering and getting through the bank of questions most quickly and accurately. And then I can add content slides as well. So I can do my entire presentation here in Mentimeter and just invite students to join into it. And I have all of these options of assessments that I can include in that presentation. So I can have it all built in. I'm not using multiple systems, one system to do the presentation, one system to do the assessment. That Mentimeter is really worth exploring. I'm myself only really getting used to Mentimeter. It's fairly new to me, but I've used it a couple of times, particularly for the word cloud, because I think that's the coolest one. And you can see now even we're still getting updated responses here. But progress is still our #1 answer on Mentimeter. So if you've not used Mentimeter, absolutely worth checking out. And again, I can share this presentation in the same way that I can with anything else. I can just put the QR code or put the full link right up on Moodle. I can put it out through Teams for students. So I can just start in Teams, send them a link to the Mentimeter, and off I go. I'm doing my presentation, I'm doing the assessment, just as if it were an in-person class. So it gives a lot of kind of powerful tools to you in terms of assessment along the way.
We've got a lot of questions coming in, so I'll just run through them quickly. So a comment from Maxine. Great for starting discussions because it's anonymous. And then I think you've answered the one about putting it via Teams and Moodle, so you've already done that bit. I love Menti, but the free version is limited like Padlet. Is there another way around it, from Donna?
Ooh, I don't know the answer to that, Donna. Again, because I'm still fairly new with Mentimeter myself. Let's look at the home and see what the paid versions are. It will still be fairly limited and tied down. I don't know if there's a sharing way around that, but I can certainly look into that. Donna, if you send me an email, that'll just chase me to look into it and I can respond directly to you.
And there's also from Mel, Mentimeter, is it something that all students have to use at the same time when they're online together, or can they do it at their own pace and join in later?
They can, because you've set it live. It is designed really to be done in that kind of live session. If you're looking for something that you can set and they can do at any time, I would suggest looking at Nearpod, which again, if we're doing another session, another webinar on presentations, Nearpod would be one of the ones I cover, because it's really quite powerful in what it offers. Very similar to Mentimeter, but I can either do the presentation live or I can do it student-paced, which means I can just have students join my class and set them a lesson to do on their own.
And then Sue has asked, which is probably for we will take that further. So as in, will the Bedford College Group be paying for the platforms that you're recommending so that we can upgrade from any of the free ones? So we'll have a look at that for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, mostly what I tend to look at is the free stuff. But in this context, I think you might be in positions where you're going to push beyond the limits of the free accounts. But this might be something to have discussions with your team around, and maybe choose one as a team that you want to try or use or focus on, rather than everybody's doing something different and needs a paid account. The last one I want to show you then very, very quickly, and I've covered this before in the previous webinar, but if again we're looking for fun assessment, the best website out there for real-time assessment on your learners in a digital environment is Quizizz. It really has developed a great deal. The big advantage of this is it is completely free. There is no paid side to Quizizz. My guess is there will be eventually, that largely they're running it as a massive beta, so that they're getting users, they're getting content, and eventually they will probably add a subscription service. But right now, it's completely free. And the reason I think it's the best one out there is not only because it's free, although that's a big winner in my pocket because I'm poor, but when I'm creating a quiz, call it professional development, it's because of the range of questions I can ask, so that the new features of Quizizz allow me to ask multiple choice questions, checkbox questions, fill in the blank. I can do polls, or now I can even do open-ended questions, so I can get to higher order thinking skills. I'm going beyond just recall now, and I can ask open-ended questions, and I can run the quizzes live. Or Quizizz has also, about 2 months ago, they've added an element where I can set a quiz as homework. So I can create my own class, which I'll just show you quickly. Here in classes, the last webinar I did, I built a class, and I can just invite people to that class. So if I just add students, click that link, and again, I can post that in the chat. And I can invite you to join my class on Quizizz. Once you join that class, you should get the homework assignment I've set for it. Or I can set a new assignment for it as well. And then once, let's do that actually, we'll find a new quiz. What topic do we want to do? Let's do something on geography, just because. Okay, this is 5th and 6th grade geography. Let's try this one. That says K to university. So I can just assign this as a homework assignment, give it a date. So we'll say it's due by the 7th of May, tomorrow morning at 9:15. Select my webinar class. Then I can choose my settings. How do I want the game to be played? We'll just leave those all as default. Click assign game. So if you're now a member of my class, you will automatically get this as a homework assignment to go and do. So between now and next week, go ahead and complete this quiz, ready for us to review next week. So that's why Quizizz is my favorite, because I can do it live, I can set it as homework, I can get to higher order thinking and evaluation skills, so I can move further up of Bloom's taxonomy than I can with many of the other quiz websites where I can only ask multiple choice questions.
Okay, so we've got a question from Gabriella. Once created, this quiz can be accessed again after a period of time.
Yes. So once I've done a quiz, I can run it live, and I could even run it live again right at the end of the session. So once I click end game, it's ready for me to run it again. So it doesn't matter. What a lot of teachers do, and a lot of my trainees have done in their micro teachers, which I think is really good practice, is they'll set a quizzes at the beginning of the session. We'll do the quizzes and see, all right, where's our prior knowledge? And then teach the session, and then run the same quizzes at the end of the session and say, all right, where's our knowledge now? So now we can see the exact progress made as a result of the teaching that happened within that class or within that lesson. So that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah, we've got a couple of endorsements there. Mahmood says his students love quizzes. And then Emily says she uses quizzes a lot, good for seeing progression and areas for improvement, just as you were just saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, my favorite with quizzes is the report you get at the end. I can see which questions were the most difficult for the group, which questions took the longest, which questions, what the overall percentage rate was for the entire group. And then I can drill down individually and look at each student. So it's really, really useful.
And then Duncan says that he embeds the links in Moodle for revision. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Good job. The one thing to be aware of with quizzes is any quiz you create. This is part of where they're in the beta phase, right? So any quiz you create ultimately becomes public, right? It becomes available to the public. But I don't have a problem with that. I'm not doing a quiz and anything that's private information. And I'm a big believer in good teaching is good stealing. So that's fine with me. But just be aware of that. Any other questions?
No, we don't have any at the moment. Any other
Brilliant.
questions?
Okay.
Put them in there.
In the handout section, just while we're seeing if there are any other questions, in handouts, you should see my list of useful websites by category. So this is a list of websites that are really good for presentation, websites that are really good for assessment, websites that are really good for collaboration, and so on. So feel free to download that before you go. And it might give you some things to explore that perhaps we haven't gone through today. I think the feedback seems that Petra and I will have a conversation about maybe doing something in the next week or two, looking at presentation tools that we can use. So looking at things like Microsoft Sway, Prezi, maybe Nearpod, that work really well for online presentation and delivery.
That's great. Some people were having issues apparently with the audio on this, so we will send out the recording of it. That's fine. I don't know quite why that is. And then on this list, do we have a college account for Powtoons, or is it, or just the standard free one? Might be worth having a list available of all the things that the college has upgraded accounts for, from Mel.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't think the college has Powtoons. I've only ever used the free one myself. It's really good. Can be a bit fiddly for a lot of teachers, so I don't promote it too much, but it is a really good tool. But I've only ever used the free account and find that pretty much gets me where I need to be.
Okay, another great webinar. Look forward to the next one. Thanks to us both from Sue, so that's great. And then a few other people saying thank you. Some people are saying with the audio, I think if you go in, you can't go in through the VPN if that's the issue. You have to go kind of straight in from your from the calendar invite in Outlook outside of the VPN. It might be that's where you've had the problems with the audio. I don't know, but we'll look into that, and we'll certainly make sure that the recording is available to everybody. Yeah, lots of thanks coming in. So thank you, everyone, and we'll do another one very soon.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Mark. It's been really helpful for everyone. Thank you.